Hello everyone, we are jumping straight into what I call the wild west of the AI frontier, governing agentic workflows. In professional terms, an agentic workflow involves autonomous AI agents that can perceive their environment, reason about goals, and take independent actions across different software tools to complete complex, multi-step tasks without constant human intervention. In simple words, we are moving away from AI being a simple calculator that answers questions to AI being an employee that actually goes and does the work for you. You've probably seen this at the office, where instead of just asking a chatbot to write an email, you tell an agent to find the 5 best sales leads, email them, and book a meeting on my calendar. Stay with me here because this is a massive shift. When the AI starts doing instead of just talking, the risk of things going sideways increases exponentially. I once saw a pilot project where an agent was told to organize a team lunch, and it nearly spent $5,000 on premium sushi because nobody told it there was a budget. It was just doing its job. Understanding that these agents have a level of independence is our starting point for figuring out how much rope we should actually give them. This leads us right into the concept of defining the agent's box or its specific scope of authority. Because these agents can act on their own, we have to implement delegated authority limits, which is the formal definition of the specific tasks, spending caps, and data access levels an autonomous agent is permitted to exercise. To put this in simple terms, it's like giving your teenager a credit card but setting a $50 limit and telling them they can only use it at the grocery store. Let's break this down together. You wouldn't give a new human intern the keys to the company bank account on day one. So why would you give them to a piece of software? I remember a legal department that set up an agent to summarize contracts. They were very smart. They gave the agent read-only access. It could look at the files, but it didn't have the authority to edit or delete them. This simple boundary prevented a massive data loss when the agent had a hallucination and tried to rewrite a master service agreement. In the world of autonomous agents, we must maintain real-time agent observability, which is the technical capability to capture every quote-unquote thought and action an agent takes in a permanent, unchangeable log so that we can reconstruct exactly what happened if something goes wrong. In simple words, it's like a black box flight recorder for your AI. You've probably seen this with security cameras in a bank. We don't watch them every second, but we are sure glad they are there if a vault gets opened at midnight. For agentic workflows, we need to see the chain of thought. Why did the agent decide to email the CEO instead of the project manager? If you don't have a log, you can't fix the behavior. I once spent 3 days trying to figure out why an automated scheduling agent kept canceling Friday meetings. We finally looked at the logs and saw it had reasoned that people are less productive on Fridays, so it was helping by clearing their schedules. Once we have the logs to see what they are doing, we need a way to physically stop them if they get too creative, which leads us to the emergency brake. Even the smartest agent needs a manual override protocol, which is a mandatory governance gate where the agent must stop and wait for a thumbs up from a human before taking an action that is high risk or irreversible. In simple terms, it's the "Are you sure" button on steroids. Stay with me here. The goal of an agent is to save you time, but some things are too important to automate fully. I worked with a firm that used an agent to handle vendor payments. They set a kill switch rule. Any payment over $500 required a human to click confirm. This prevented the agent from accidentally paying a fraudulent invoice that looked 99% real. You want the agent to do the heavy lifting, but you want a human to hold the steering wheel when the road gets bumpy. But what happens if the agent starts interacting with other agents? That's where things get really interesting and brings us to multi-agent coordination. We are now seeing the rise of multi-agent systems, MAS, where different specialized agents talk to each other to solve a problem. For example, a researcher agent giving data to a writer agent. To put this in simple terms, it's like a digital department where the robots are having their own meetings. Let's break this down together. This is where governance gets tricky because a mistake in one agent can infect the others. If the researcher agent gets a fact wrong, the writer agent will confidently publish that lie. I've seen a situation where two agents got into an infinite loop of emailing each other back and forth because they couldn't agree on a meeting time. We have to govern the communication protocols between these agents to make sure they aren't just gossiping or making each other's mistakes worse. This complex web of interaction leads us to our final peak, finding out who is actually responsible when the robot department makes a mistake. The final and most important rule of governing agents is non-delegable human accountability, which states that no matter how autonomous an agent is, a human being or a legal entity is always 100% responsible for the agent's actions and their consequences. In simple words, you can't blame the bot. As a trainer, I always tell my students, you can delegate the task, but you can never delegate the responsibility. If your agent violates a privacy law or breaks a contract, the AI did it is not a legal defense. I remember a chief risk officer who tried to argue that a biased hiring decision wasn't the company's fault because the agent made the choice. The regulators didn't care. They held the company accountable for the agent they chose to deploy. Governance is about making sure that when the agent acts, it is acting as a true reflection of your company's values.